How watching the Super Bowl ended up bankrupting my neighbor. The sound started as a low, vibrating hum that rattled the spoon against the side of my coffee mug. It was 1 p.m. on a Sunday, the kind of lazy, gray February afternoon where the only thing on the agenda is watching the snow fall and doing absolutely nothing. I was sitting on my couch, staring at the pride and joy of my existence, a 100-gallon, rimless Red Sea Reefer saltwater aquarium. If you aren't in the hobby, you might not get it. You might see a glass box with water. But to me, that tank was a living, breathing piece of art that I had cultivated for 6 years. It held a delicate ecosystem of SPS corals, rare torches that flowed in a current like neon hair, and fish I had raised since they were the size of a fingernail. It was peaceful. It was silent. The hum turned into a grind. It was coming from the shared wall behind the tank. I live in a condo complex. The walls are decent, usually soundproof enough that I don't hear footsteps, but this sounded like someone was trying to excavate a tunnel into my living room. I stood up, frowning. "What are you doing?" I muttered to the wall. The vibration was so strong I saw the water surface in a tank ripple. My clownfish, usually brave little guys, darted into the anemone for cover. I walked over to the wall, intending to knock on it, to let the guy next door, Brad, a guy who wears sunglasses indoors and refers to women as females, know that he was shaking my fixtures. But before I could raise my fist, the sound changed. It went from a grind to a high-pitched whine, the sound of a power tool hitting zero resistance. Then, the unthinkable happened. I watched, in slow motion, as a spiral steel drill bit, thick as my thumb, punched through the drywall directly behind the center of my tank. It didn't stop at the drywall. It kept spinning, driven by an aggressive hand on the other side. It made contact with the back pane of the aquarium. Crack. The sound wasn't like a window breaking. It was like a gunshot. A spiderweb of white fractures instantly shot out from the point of impact, covering the entire back panel of the tank. I screamed. I didn't mean to. It just tore out of my throat. Stop. But Brad didn't stop. He pushed harder. The glass gave way. It wasn't a leak. It was an explosion. 100 gallons of saltwater, weighing roughly 850 pounds, released its potential energy all at once. The back panel blew out. The water didn't just drip, it surged. A tidal wave of brine, sand, and livestock crashed into my living room wall, rebounding onto the hardwood floors. I was hit by a wall of water. It knocked me backward over the coffee table. I landed hard on my hip, sputtering, tasting the salt on my lips. The silence that followed was deafening. No filter hum. No flowing water. Just the wet, slapping sound of liquid spreading across the floorboards and the terrified flopping of fish on my Persian rug. My tang, a purple tang worth $300 that I've had for 5 years, was gasping on the wet wood, his gills flaring in panic. My corals, sensitive creatures that die if the temperature swings 2 degrees, were now sitting exposed to the air, drying out under the LED lights which were flickering ominously. "No," I gasped, scrambling to my knees. "No, no, no." I grabbed a plastic storage bin from the corner, the one I use for water changes, and started frantically scooping up water from the puddles, trying to create a rescue pool. I grabbed the tang with my bare hands, feeling his slime coat against my skin, and dropped him in. The drilling had stopped. Then, from the other side of the wall, I heard a muffled voice. "Bro, did you hear that? I think I hit a pipe." A pipe. He thought he hit a pipe. I looked at the devastation. My living room was a lagoon. The water was seeping into the baseboards. The electrical strip for the tank was hissing and popping, sending sparks showering down onto the wet floor. I had to rip the main power cord from the wall before I got electrocuted. I stood up, water dripping from my jeans, shaking with a rage so pure, so white-hot that my vision blurred. I marched to my front door, threw it open, and stomped down the hallway to Unit 4B. I didn't knock. I pounded. I hammered on that door with a fist that wanted to punch through wood. "Open the door," I screamed. Don't miss the moment when the HOA manager arrives with the building blueprints. Isn't just a violation of condo policy, it's a level of gross negligence that turns this from a whoops into a financial death sentence for Brad. Brad isn't going to be watching the Super Bowl, he's going to be watching his entire net worth dissolve in saltwater. Watch full version here.